This is a new 2025 Audi A6 Avant, a handsome new addition to the world of German executive saloons and estates. This one being, of course, the Avant Estate model, which is practical and luxurious. In a world of modern EVs and lots of tech, do the big three from the German manufacturers still do enough to keep up? Well, I actually think it's not the E-Class and the 5 Series that this car needs to worry about. I think it actually comes closer to home. I think it's probably the Skoda Superb that it needs to worry about, just because of the price difference. But I'm here today to find out if it's worth your cash to spend the extra on one of these, and whether the A6 is still one of the best motorway mile munchers in the business. But before we do that, if you're looking for a new car and you don't want the faff of going to dealerships and searching around for something on the pre-owned market, then please do hit us up at the links in the description below at Players Cars Premium, where we will help you find and source the car that you want in the spec that you want. No pesky emails, we can contact via WhatsApp 24/7 and as low as 6.9% APR variable on finance currently. So hit the links in the description below, make sure you ask for Elliot and let them know that I sent you. So then, the Audi A6, obviously this comes in saloon and Avant, starting at around £50,000 here in the UK, but you can spec them up to over 70, so sort of 73 to 75 for the absolute best trims available with all the option packs, etc. So it is a little bit of a game of making sure that you've got the right packs installed and things like that. It's not just a case of everything comes on the trim, so do watch out for that on the used market. The standard entry-level sport trim is actually pretty generously spec'd as standard, with 18-inch alloys, LED headlights all round, standard suspension with 14.5-inch infotainment and 11.9-inch instrument clusters. There's also some decent luxuries in the cabin when it comes to your tech, but the S-Line is the one that comes with the more sporty styling and dynamics. So it has 20mm lower suspension and 19-inch wheels with sport seats, flat bottom steering wheel and privacy glass, and also has a little bit more flair on the interior as well as the exterior styling. And the one I have here is a launch edition, which is very similar to your edition 1, which is a premium or special trim, which includes 20-inch wheels with a black styling pack, red brake calipers on the edition 1. On this one I have silver, either leather or cloth seats, and also an extra 10.9-inch passenger screen, which I'll show you in a little bit. There are a few packs to consider though. For example, the sound and vision pack costs £2,500 to £3,000, which includes the head-up display, which is really good, B&O sound, which is a 3D sound system, ambient lighting pack, and also additional USB charging, and the technology pack, which is about £3,000, including the 360-degree camera, Park Assist Plus, and the extended LED interior lighting, or a Tech Pack Pro, which is £6,000, but that adds quad zone climate control, the panoramic sunroof, heated rear seats, and the advanced key with remote park. So in the UK, the options are a little bit limited in terms of drivetrain. We don't get any of the V6 options, we only get 4-cylinder, and we only get a standard petrol or diesel with mild hybrid. The standard petrol model is a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo with 204 horsepower and front-wheel drive. The one that I have here is the 40 TDI, which is a 204 horsepower 2-litre diesel with a 48-volt mild hybrid system. This one as well is available in quattro all-wheel drive, and of course the diesel is the one that you'd want if you're towing, with 400 Newton meters of torque. And then there is the 50 TFSI E, which is a plug-in hybrid, which is all-wheel drive only in the UK, around 300 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds, so it's the fastest option, and around 69 miles of electric range. This one also has adaptive air suspension, which is about £1,700, and I would say well worth spec-in. Transforms the ride of the car completely and means that it's super adjustable. And this is why I say the Skoda is probably in the main competition here, because the cheaper Skoda Superb LNK does have the option for air suspension as well, which makes it a really supple ride like this one. There's also the option for the panoramic roof that I'll show you in a bit on this one for £2,400, which is the switchable transparency roof. So let's have a little look around it then. You can see we've got an entirely new front end, which some people say is a bit less aggressive than previous models, but I kind of disagree. I think at certain angles it does look really angry, and you can see the LED lights make a nice difference. I'll show you some of the animations that they can do, because there's 7 different ones to choose from when you lock and unlock the car, which is really cool. And on this model, this is the launch edition, but it's effectively the same as like the edition 1 and S-Line, where you've got these nice big aggressive front scoops here, which are actually functional. You can see there is actually a gap there, which is really cool, and then some kind of fake mesh. The radar is built in down the bottom, and then you've got that Audi badge on the front. But yeah, these lights are really, really cool. You can see that they do that typical Audi venting thing where they get a bit of condensation in cold weather, but it doesn't really impact them, the usage of them in any way. But it does still retain some of that aggressive nature to it, and I think it's definitely helped by this metallic red paint and all these gloss black accents. And as we head down the side of the car, you can see on this particular model, I have the larger alloy wheels, which are kind of reminiscent really of those on like the older TTS, the RS models and the R8, which is really cool. and a gloss black trim. You'll have to excuse how muddy it is, the weather is terrible here at the moment, down the side there, and the newer style Audi doors and mirrors, got some S-line badging on the side there. And as we head down the side of the profile of the car, you can see that actually it's quite nice. It's quite svelte and sleek for a estate car. You can see it's got quite a swooping rear end, which makes it not quite as practical at the very back for those kind of taller objects that you load in, but still pretty cool. And then as we head around the back of the car, what is cool is we've got a rear light bar here, which runs along the back, and the indicators are integrated into that as well. So I'll insert some clips of that going on as we go. You've got these kind of vent style bits here, which some people really like, some people dislike. I do think it adds a bit to the shape of the back of the car. So definitely something that I wouldn't complain about. And I do like the geometry of these rear lights. I don't know how much you're quite going to see on camera there, because they do change a little bit as you're kind of in static animation. You can see they kind of do a few bits as you come closer to the car. And there is also an option to kick under the tailgate to open it as well, which is nice. But yeah, quite a nice update to the rear end there. Reminds me of some of the Audi e-tron stuff they've kind of implemented, like the fin design and the way the light bar runs across. Definitely looks a little bit e-tron, so it's nice to see that their design language is becoming a little bit more cohesive. But yeah, I think the saloon one looks a little bit odd with that rear light design, but this estate variant I think is really cool, especially how kind of sleek it is at the back there. The gloss black accents definitely help on this model as well, but I'd love to know your thoughts. What do you think about this design? Is it as good as the previous A6? I do actually prefer this front end, you know, because the old one was like really squared off, wasn't it? It had like a very chunky front to it, and I think this kind of more svelte design, even though it's a little bit more sleek in terms of aerodynamics, it definitely looks aggressive still, which is really cool. So as we head inside the car, we've got the touch panel here for the central locking, but actually in here it's not a button, it's actually just a touch sensor, and it feels really good to use. As you pull it, it activates and the door softly opens, and it works really, really well. And as we head inside on this one, you can see that we have the optional cloth interior. So even though this is the top spec, they've actually changed the sort of fake leather and suede out for this cloth trim, which is really interesting and provides some more texture on the dashboard. So let's dive in and actually see what this interior is all about. As you can see, there's a lot to look into in here. But on the door card, of course, with Audi, you do get kind of the best quality of the Volkswagen Audi Group range. So some nice leathers up top with stitching. You've got an LED panel that runs all the way alongside. There's loads of ambient lighting in here. You can see the B&O logo there on this model as well. And then in the door card, you've got this nice kind of almost like a cross stitched pattern on this fabric, which is really nice. It's got this really nice texture to it, and also some aluminium trim, and this is real metal as well. It feels nice and cold to the touch and high quality, and that continues in the cabin too. And again, some nice cloth padding down here with some good quality window switches, and this is all basically one touch panel, but it clicks physically, and that goes on throughout the cabin as well. So if I was to click this, for example, you'll hear it. So yeah, it does work quite well. And then down here, you've got a decent sized door bin with a bottle area and a little bit of space there. Not the biggest in the range, but not too bad. You've got the S door seal there. And as you can see, the sports pedals in this one, and the seats, which do have an extension on the leg support, which is nice. And then you've also got the 4-way lumbar adjustment and electric adjustment as well. And you've got this nice kind of diamond quilted pattern. There's a little bit of padding to them, but they are quite firm, sporty seats in this model. It's only the original sport trim, ironically, that won't have that. And then you can see this lovely pan roof in here as well, which I will show you momentarily what that does. But lots of side bolstering, this kind of sort of dotted, almost carbon fibre looking pattern to the cloth there. They are comfortable seats, very supportive, but one thing I will say is they are definitely on the firmer side. But let's jump in then. You can see that we've got quite a traditional cabin layout from Audi, but with a lot of modern touches. So inside the car, you can see we have this newer style Audi steering wheel with their new sort of 2D badge, which is really cool. And again, these controls continue from the door. So these are actually touch controls. So they do swipe up and down. So I can press this one to interact with that half of the display. And then I can swipe this up and down, as you can see, to then alter what's on that display. But this does click again. So you can press it and it will physically click. The only thing that means though is, for example, on this side I use this one for track skip, and when you press track skip sometimes it registers that you're touching this phone area here, and then it will change this to your phone display. Very minor complaint, and I do like the fact that you can swipe for volume adjustment, for example. So as I'm swiping, you can see that that is changing on the screen, but you can also click it properly. So it's not too bad. It's much better than the Volkswagen one, which is like a capacitive haptic feedback nightmare. This has that really nice Audi clicky tactile nature to it, which I do enjoy. And this steering wheel is quite nice. If you've been in an Audi in the last sort of 10 years, you'll be very familiar with the quality and the feel of everything, such as the stalks, like for the indicators. And you can see on this one as well that the ambient lighting strip along the top will also respond to your indications. So if I indicate the other way, you can see it does it on the other side, which is pretty cool. Now this display, they have changed slightly over the years, so it's no longer kind of your full virtual cockpit necessarily. So there's a couple of different view options depending on what you're doing, but it's a bit more limited than previous iterations because there is such a large display here, and it's all quite nicely curved towards the driver. They call this the panoramic display because it is all kind of integrated into one, but it isn't one screen. You can see a clear separation between the two screens, but in fairness, the contrast is good enough, as you can see here, that it does almost look like OLED quality. It's not quite there, but it's really bright, really crisp, and as you can see, very responsive, which is always really nice. There's also a permanent menu here which shows you all of your controls for the car, so you can go into like car settings and things like that, so you can change all of your lighting and all that kind of stuff. So for example, the exterior lighting you can click on and it will show you some of the different patterns that you can select. So these are all of the different animations that you can have on the rear lights, which is really, really cool. There's lots of different ones that you can choose from. It's not an overload of information either. I tend to just pull up Apple CarPlay and run it like that, which is absolutely fine. It tells me everything I need to see. And then at the bottom, you've got your climate controls here, which are quite easy to use as you drive along. Even though they are touch, you can kind of rest your wrist on this area here and then touch the screen as necessary. So you've got things for your heated seats and all that in there, and you can just press this to get to the main climate menu as well. The vents are actually tactile, so they're still ones that you can control physically and turn on and off manually all round the cabin as well. So there's no this sort of touch control stuff that a lot of other manufacturers are doing. It's also worth noting as well that there are paddles for the shifting on the back of the steering wheel, and they are like an aluminium texture. They're actually cold to the touch and they feel much nicer quality than the stuff that they've implemented in Audis before. A common complaint from drivers of Audis was constantly that the paddles were like a plastic, like a hard plastic, and a bit brittle, not great feeling. These ones are a big improvement, although I've not been using them too much on this diesel. The gloss black, although it looks nice and makes a nice contrast, as you can probably see, it becomes a little bit of a dusty, smudgy nightmare in many places in this car. But I'm happy to report that all the materials feel solid. Even down here, there's like nice leather, which is squidgy, which has contrast stitching, and then you can see here, you've got the really nice aluminium trim, which is cold to the touch, and ambient lighting absolutely everywhere, which looks really nice at night. And there's two stages of that as well, so I'll put some clips in to show you what that's all about. There's a wireless charging pad here with two USB-Cs, and down here you've got a nice clicky selector for your drive select, so it goes through the different options here. So balanced, dynamic, comfort, efficiency. So if I was to put it into dynamic, for example, you can now see the air suspension is actually lowering the car, and you get that animation as well to show the car is lowering, and I can actually feel the car slightly lowering as well as I'm sitting here. But it's nice, we also have some media controls here. So we've got volume wheel, which is nice and tactile, which you can also nudge for the track skip, which is very reminiscent of in my older Audi TT. And then on this side as well, you've got your engine start stop button. Again, nice clicky tactile button. You've got a button here for the shortcut to your ADAS systems, so when you click that, it will take you straight to the main menu for it, and also a parking assist, parking camera button, which shows you your 360 top down cam on this particular model with the tech pack, and then your gear select, which is just one that you nudge in whichever direction you want it to go. Nice and simple. There is also on the steering wheel a shortcut button, and that is pre-programmed to turn off the speed limit warning assist, which is really cool because that is something that a lot of people would like to disable when they get in the car. Obviously it comes on automatically in EU cars now, so to have a nice clicky button here that just turns it off when you get in, nice and simple. And I do like this simplified layout actually. The fact that there is also a really good head-up display, and as you can see there in terms of the economy that I've been achieving so far in this particular model. You've got a nice frameless rear view mirror, and as you can see, a large C-pillar that will prevent you from seeing a certain bit at the back, but the car doesn't feel that big. It feels very maneuverable, and the cameras do help. And then up here, just some touch sensitive buttons for your ambient lighting, and also you've got the button to control the pan roof. So you can see that as I nudge that, the roof goes back in sections, or you can just press it once and hold, and you can see there it will then block it out. And in the high-end cars, you get this passenger display. And now the passenger display, I think, is a bit of a gimmick. I wouldn't say it's that important. You can see you can have like the time on here. You can have the overview of your navigation and what's currently going on with your like range and stuff like that. And then your media controls over here from Apple CarPlay or whatever other app. And there are options on there for other applications as well. So there's a store which you can get other things so that you can watch stuff on here and that kind of thing. So it's cool that it's there and that it exists, but I don't think it's essential to the car experience. And I do think in some instances people might think that it makes the kind of dash look a bit busy, but I would say that I prefer having this screen here to not, because otherwise it's just this big blank blob of sort of glossiness, and it's probably nicer just to have this really. And under here we do have an ample storage area from your glove box, nice soft open, and a center storage area as well under here, which is an adjustable armrest. It's a padded area in there, like it's got your kind of rubberized mat and a little light, which is nice, but it's not a very deep well, is it, considering how big this center console is? But we know from the back with that massive transmission hump that that's the reason why. But yeah, I think overall a really nice place to sit and spend some time. It feels cozy, it feels very well thought out, and maybe a little bit busy for some, but I definitely prefer it to some other brands. And the fact that even though a lot of these controls are kind of touch controls, which are probably a bit cheaper to produce, the fact that they've all got a nice clicky tactile feel to them, I think makes a big difference in terms of the overall comfort. These door releases are electronic release as well, so when you pull them, they do kind of feel like the buttons on the outside. I think, although they're not a mechanical feel, they do feel very expensive, which I like. And stepping into the back of the A6, you can see that the story continues back here with the nice quality on the door cards. Bit of storage in the door there, possibly more so than in the front actually, and that same nice speaker grille for your B&O sound with the ambient lighting continuing in the back with these nice materials. And the seating angle is pretty good as well for some fire support back here. And the one thing that you'll notice though is the massive transmission hump in the middle makes a middle seat quite impractical, but this particular one has the kind of rear comfort pack, which has your rear climate and also rear heated seats, as well as some USB-C charging. And on the back of the seats you've got a bit of a knee indentation with a net for some stuff to hold as well. And in the middle you've got a nice armrest that comes down, nice solid quality with some cup holders, and these have grippers in, unlike in many cheaper brands. And this does come down as well for a complete split, which is nice, so you've got a ski hatch as well to load longer items in. And as for Isofix is nice and easy in this car. You've got these really high quality flip up covers that just fold out of the way, and they're nice and secure. They've got a really high quality feel to them, and it means that you're not going to damage anything back here when using them, and you can't lose these, which is great. There's also little practicalities back here, such as these little reading lights which have an ambient glow to them when they're switched off, which is nice. You grab handles and some hooks on the doors with some ventilation as well. So then stepping into the back of the A6, and I've got this in my driving position at 6 foot. As you can see, we do have quite a bit of space here, and there's little indents in the back of the chair for my knees should I need that extra little bit of room as well. And the rake on the seat isn't actually that bad. I could probably get comfortable for a longer journey back here. And the headrests are in a really nice position too. Lots of support, lots of comfort, and a nice handle to grip onto. The real fall apart bit is this middle one. You're not going to have a comfortable middle adult passenger back here. Not only is the car fairly narrow and it would be cramped with 3 people back here, but this transmission hump is one of the biggest that I've seen in a modern car. I've literally got to straddle it, and then look, I've got no space either side of me for other people really. So definitely okay for very small children maybe, but it's not going to be the most practical if you're looking for rear occupant space. I think it's more of a cargo carrier than it is a people carrier. That being said though, overall comfort is good and headroom is capacious, even though this one has the pan roof. Now this cargo area, nice and large and practical as you would expect with this electric tailgate and an automatic retractable load cover, which you can also manually bring forward as well, but it works really well and is totally removable. We've got light strips built into the walls down here, and we've got some hooks as well to carry shopping bags, and this kind of rail system on the floor to reinforce everything and make it nice and sturdy. You've also got power back here and the ability to pull the seats down from this area. So if I pull that, you can see actually throws those seats completely down, and I can do the same on this side to create this massive cavernous area. You can see there, the only difference is that you're going to have a bit of a swooping back there, so you can't fit taller items at the back, but look at the length of this there, and it's quite an easy load area too. There is a bit of a lip, but it's not too bad, and you can also undo this bit here, and you can see there's a little bit of extra storage under here. This load cover is completely removable as well, and you can stow that, so it makes for a cavernous area. If I just go into the back here, you can just see where this comes to, and the headrests don't really interfere either with this. And because the seat belts have this nice configuration where they're really neatly stored here, you can quite easily with one hand put this back up, and the seatbelt hasn't snagged, which is always a real plus for me. So really easy to operate that, and really easy to load in and out. And it's nice that you also have the option for that split rather than just being a 60-40. You've got the 40-20-40, makes it a little bit more practical and versatile. So yeah, fit your IKEA wardrobes in here, have a kip in the back with an airbed, whatever you need to do, it's going to probably work out for you. Although as impressive as this is, it's not quite as large as the rivals from Mercedes and BMW. Even back here though, these have a nice clicky feel to them, and the whole system works super well. I think this does look the part. So I think it's about time we get this thing out on the road and see what it's like to drive. So let's try 0 to 60 in the A6. I'm going to plant now, and the Quattro has kicked in nicely. You get a tiny little bit of electric shove off the line, there's 60, but it's very minimal. Normally the electric part of the system only really kicks in at very, very low speeds when you're just tapping the accelerator, so in very slow crawling traffic and things like, you know, when you're coasting at sort of 20 mile an hour in a traffic jam, that kind of thing. That's when the engine will cut out and you can feel the electric just boosting you along that little bit. But generally day to day, the diesel will do most of the heavy lifting, and obviously there's a nice bit of torque there for you as well. But granted, this is a very big, heavy car, so it doesn't feel like the fastest thing in the world. So I've got the car in the balanced mode at the moment for all of the steering, suspension, etc. And it does provide, indeed, a nice balance. So as I'm wafting along now, this air suspension, although a relatively expensive option, I would highly recommend if you're looking to do lots of miles in this car, because it makes a massive difference to the ride. It makes it absolutely sublime. In the comfort setting, you can breeze over speed bumps, no problem at all, and all of the little imperfections of the road just get ironed out. It's a really nice system. But then also when you put it into sport mode, things really firm up, and you can see on the screen the ride height starts to lower, and you can really feel that in the position where you're sitting as well. The actual driving position almost seems to change a little bit. Even though it's a subtle drop, it does make a big difference, more than you might think. But cruising along day to day, you're going to be plenty happy with sitting here as an experience. The ergonomics are pretty good. I would say the only thing for me is I quite like a high driving position, which is what I'm sitting in now, and it does impact slightly on your position of your feet. I feel like I can't get the footrest quite right because of how high I'm sitting, but obviously that's down to preference, and I can still place my elbows and cruise along nicely, so that's always a good thing. And this laminated glass does make a big difference to ride comfort and quality as well, because you don't really hear much of that external noise, and once you've got this B&O sound system cranked up as well, you're really not going to be too bothered about any wind and road noise. The actual tyre noise isn't too bad in here either, especially as this is running on the largest wheels available. I think this strikes a nice balance between driving dynamics and comfort, whereas you go for your Merc, potentially an E-Class for that more ride comfort, that more luxury experience and a more glitzy interior, and then you go potentially for your BMW 5 Series and the i5s for that more kind of sporty driving dynamic and more steering feel and engagement. This kind of strikes a little bit of a balance. It's somewhere in between, which is where Audi normally sit really. So the mild hybrid definitely makes a nice difference in those low speed situations, but I wouldn't say it makes any difference to economy. Being a big heavy car and a 4-cylinder turbo diesel, economy isn't as crazy as you might expect. I've been experiencing around real world average of 37 mpg, which obviously isn't going to be a patch on something like a proper hybrid system. Think about something like a Toyota full hybrid, where it's going to get sort of 60, 70 mpg and be a smoother experience to drive as well. That being said though, it is nice that they're still offering diesel options in the year 2025 and beyond. So for motorway mile munching, which is what this car is expected to do, it's going to be a solid option if you still want an estate. But let's have a little look at what the driving dynamics are actually like. So I'm going to move the drive select now over into the dynamic mode, which is the sportiest option, and this is going to lower the ride height a little bit, and I can already feel that it's firmed up the air suspension, so I feel like I've got a little bit more idea what the road surface is doing, and it's a little bit less forgiving, and there's a bit less in terms of wallow body roll and stuff like that. Not that it's bad anyway, but definitely makes a difference. And this is probably more like the experience of the standard S-line suspension as well. So then I'm going to put it into the sports gearbox mode as well, so it hangs onto the gears a little bit. Let's chuck it in and see what the Quattro can do. It is rear biased in this car, as we can see. Still grips nicely though. The traction control doesn't allow you to slip too far off course. And yeah, the Quattro really grips up. When you plant it off the line, it takes a split second for that system to kick in, but then eventually it will pull you out. And yeah, the traction control does the business anyway. What you will find is that rear bias being up to 70%, you can have a little bit of fun with it, although the weight of the car does get in the way of you getting proper tail happy in most situations. And the sports gearbox mode does hang the gears quite heavily, as in most Volkswagen Audi Group cars. So tight left-hander here. Road surface is a little bit tricky down this road, and it's normally a little bit slippy as well, which it is. even in this sport mode, to be fair, the air suspension is dealing with the kind of potholes and the imperfections quite nicely. I am finding though the ADAS systems are throwing me off a little bit. So it's quite a narrow country road, and I keep seeing the warning flash up on the screen that I'm too close to the boundary, and the steering is trying to tug me more towards the centre of the road, which can be a little bit troublesome if you've got something coming the other way. But obviously this can all be tinkered with, and it's great that you've got that one button to turn off the speed limit warning. Again, that ADAS is really fighting me here. I'm trying to make the most of turning down this road, and it keeps, you can probably see me fighting with the steering a little bit, so that's something I would definitely turn off for the rest of this drive. Quattro knows exactly what's going on. And of course, when it comes to steering feel, Volkswagen Audi Group stuff tends to be a little bit numb in the steering department, and this is no exception, but you do get more texture through the wheel than I was expecting, which is always nice, because sometimes in some of the cars it feels like you're just piloting a suet pudding along a slide, but this is much more engaging, thankfully. And actually in this suspension mode, you know, I feel like I know a lot about what the car is doing, where I'm placing it and that kind of thing. Brakes are interesting because the pedal feel, even though it is now brake-by-wire, is actually still really good. There's actually quite a decent firmness to it, and it's quite progressive. It doesn't feel spongy at all, and obviously being no EV or hybrid, there's no regen necessary really, apart from a little bit of regen for that mild hybrid system. As you stamp on them, oh yeah, it really does bring you to a stop, but there is an ever so slight delay. You kind of feel that electronic disconnect just when you first press the pedal. There's like a microsecond of delay, which can be a bit disconcerting at first, but you soon get used to it. Now this road is a more challenging road, as you can see, being thrown around a little bit. I'm doing the national limit here, and there's a few dips and variations and stuff like that, but the Quattro system handles this all really well, and the car feels planted due to its size and weight. This is actually pretty much as long as an Audi A8 was about 20 years ago, so you can see how the cars have grown, but it never feels hard to place. And obviously with all of the kind of assist systems and the 360 cam and so on in the higher end models, it's quite easy to park and maneuver, so that's not really a concern. And actually the handling, the turning is really quick for a car of this weight and size. I was super impressed when I first kind of chucked it into a 90-degree bend, that it's super maneuverable and easy to live with. Yeah, most of this car's life is going to be spent just piling up and down the motorway, and I think it's really good for that, especially with the air suspension option. I definitely think that makes a big difference for your day-to-day comfort. Even though it's quite a big car, coming out of here, I'm going to do it's pretty much, it's beyond the 90-degree turn. Super maneuverable, and I've come out of there super easy. Yeah, it feels nice. The steering resets itself nice and easy as well, and this steering wheel is great. It's just a nice experience. I think really the only major downsides of a car like this now is its cost of entry. When you think that this model is between sort of 60 and 70,000 pounds with all the bells and whistles, and a lot of the tech that's on this is included as standard now in some cheaper family cars from kind of your Korean rivals and so on. And then of course all these Chinese EVs coming in now that have all of that stuff as standard, and then you've got stuff like Tesla that have a lot of kit as standard as well. It makes a nice difference that this has that mild hybrid tech on the diesel, but it is still an old-fashioned 4-pot diesel, and the economy, as we've seen, isn't necessarily the best in comparison to some other cars in its class either. So you are kind of trading off a little bit there, because you consider you can get a Skoda Superb estate with a very similar engine setup, granted not hybrid, but still get similar economy, if not better. And yes, it's not going to be as fancy, but it's 20, 30 grand cheaper in some instances. But of the big three brands, I've normally lent towards Audi because of the mix of comfort and driving dynamics. It's not quite as sharp as a BMW, it's not quite as luxurious as a Merc, but it's a lovely middle ground, and it's got all the tech that you might need on it. But with lots of rivals now offering all of this as standard in trim levels rather than as option packs, I think Audi has a bit of catching up to do in that department. But I do believe, like most of Volkswagen Audi Group, Audi is listening to consumer feedback and making those alterations. And the fact that this is a lovely cabin with a tactile experience, and it's going to do exactly what it says on the tin for the people who are still in the market for this kind of car, I do think it is a really good option. And I am impressed with the level of refinement for a 4-cylinder diesel. Of course, the petrol ones will be even more refined. And for such a large car, the manoeuvrability round town is really impressive too. So there we go, guys, the Audi A6. Still a jack of all trades in my opinion. And yes, there's a bit of glitz and glamour now, maybe a bit too much tech for some people, but I still think a solid option for those in the market. Big thanks to Audi for sending me out the car for a review. Thank you to you guys for watching, all your likes, comments, subscriptions. It goes such a long way. Please don't forget to share, and also if you're looking for a new car, hit us up in the description below. I'll find you a good car at a good price. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.